Fabulous. Okay, we're being recorded. Welcome, Nikki. Thanks for joining. At any point, too, folks, as much as there's a presentation, it's mostly just to organize my thoughts and then make sure we have something to share back out with the whole community, especially for folks not here tonight. But jump in with questions. I am not the best at being able to see the chat and share information at the same time. So please just take yourself off mute and jump in if you have a comment, a question, feedback, any and all welcome. All right, let's start with the overnight trip. So huge shout out to our fifth grade teachers and our room parents. Our room parents have done a ton of research around different options and what's available for the remainder of the year. This has now been a tradition to have an outdoor experience in fifth grade for, maybe since the first time we had fifth grade, actually. So 6 years. Suspended in COVID for obvious reasons. But it is a really, really, I think, signature part of our program, something students really look forward to, something that deeply bonds the community. And there's a real important educational aspect in terms of what the topic students get to engage around. So I'm really, really excited about it. I've also never been. So I might see if I can get myself to be a chaperone this year to truly experience it. So here's what we know. We are partnering with NatureBridge, which is the organization that we've partnered with for a number of years, and have been really pleased with their programming. We're going to a new location this year, which is their Golden Gate Environmental Science Program, which is in the Marin Headlands. Through their programming, they have the educators there. Our team goes, but as chaperones, so our teachers get to be supportive and engaged, but they are not leading or facilitating kind of the learning experience. The staff at NatureBridge are. Topics they're going to get into are things like marine science, plants and animals, climate change, watershed studies, and more. The trip is scheduled for February 10th. The students will leave on a Monday. They'll spend 2 nights at NatureBridge and return to school on Wednesday, February 13th. This is a little bit earlier in the year than we've typically done, which I think is great. I don't know if we have any room parents here that want to chime in on that. I imagine that was an intentional, maybe it's when it was available, but also an intentional decision in terms of because it is such a bonding experience and builds culture with the grade. My viewpoint is the earlier in the year, the better. We will have, anyone have is that a question? We will have fifth grade family meetings coming up once we get more detailed information and start to kind of really prepare families to be able to prepare students. We'll share more about the curriculum itself. We'll share how we're teaching into and preparing students in the classroom. And those will probably happen as soon as in early January. For those eager to learn more in the immediate, the link to NatureBridge's website and specifically to the Golden Gate Environmental Science Program is linked there. You can click on that. They've got a bunch of great resources in terms of the content being covered, pictures of the experience. So encourage folks to start there. Any questions on that before we move into Magic Fund?
Fun. The teacher thing. There's so few of us, and I feel pressured to be something really helpful to you. So.
Rebecca, you might
talked a lot.
Rebecca, we can hear you. I don't know if you're elevating a question or just maybe don't realize you're not on mute. I'm going to mute you for now, Rebecca, but unmute yourself if you're trying to ask a question. All right, I'm going to move into Magic Fund. Does that sound good? Thank you, Margaret, for the head nodding. It's always awkward when you have a deck in front of you and can't see people. All right, Magic Fund. For folks new to our community, we'll start just pretty high level. What is Magic Fund? It is the largest school fundraiser of the year. Magic Fund allows for many different things across our school. our resident teacher program in kinder and first grade, robust arts program for all grades, body percussion to grades, our Spanish program, overnight trip for 5th grade, 8th grade graduation, and a signature end of the year trip for 8th grade. So many of the things Magic Fund will cover, much of all of these things listed here, and many of these things are kind of considered outside of core instruction, i.e. we're not able to do them on public funding alone. So we fundraise on top of what we get in state funding to enable these programs to happen. For 5th grade specifically, one of the things we've worked to do over the years is get even more specific about what Magic Fund allows for so that it's concrete and clear to families. So for 5th grade this year, Magic Fund, the money that we raise is specifically going to the outdoor education program to ensure all students are able to attend. It'll be funding on top of that, our integrated arts program, Mr. Omar for 5th grade, and then body percussion taught by Mr. Antoine. So those are the 3 specific things that when I make a donation to the 5th grade Magic Fund, those are the things that I am paying for. Any questions on that?
I'll ask, so we're not paying then for the camping program separately at all?
Correct. One fundraiser.
Okay.
We got feedback, Margaret, that it was to minimize asks. It was hard to be asked twice for money, and especially around the same period of time as being asked for Magic Fund and as being asked for the camping trip. And can't we make that one and the same?
Okay, I see. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Can you
So
talk
it's
a little bit?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, what's included in the integrated arts program? I'm new, so I don't.
Yeah. Hi, Nikki.
Still
Welcome.
learning.
Yeah. So our arts program is Mr. Omar for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Mr. Omar's been here since the founding of the school and has played a very large role in developing the whole curriculum from K through 8th grade in terms of kind of the progression of what students learn over the course of their tenure at New School. He supports Miss Liz, who is the K4 art teacher. And so that's what we mean by integrated. It's kind of the scaffolded curriculum that's been developed over time. And then obviously the direct instruction that he provides to 5th grade students.
So you're talking
Does
about
that answer?
like visual art, like their art class that they go to once a
Correct.
week?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's more than once a week. I believe they have Mr. Omar 3 times a week in 5th grade.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah. That's a great question. Any other questions?
Have we been meeting our goal for the Magic Fund in the last, like, have you guys had enough money for all these things?
A great question, Sonia. Can you've teed me up for another slide that we have coming. Okay. So I'm going to hold that question and come back to it, but I love it. And actually, Sonia, maybe even this next slide is a helpful place to get into it. So I wanted to just be one of the places we've also gotten feedback is just to be as transparent as possible about our fundraising efforts. Why do we fundraise as a public school? And again, we also get the question again, what does the fundraising go towards? So here's some facts about fundraising that I think it's important that as members of our community, we are all aware of. So first and foremost, we need to raise $8,000 per student on top of what we get in public funding. That allows us to ensure we have a very low adult to student ratio across our school, regardless of the grade, be able to offer individualized supports for all students, have an arts program, have music, have Spanish program for K4, and overall just ensure exceptional outcomes for all kids. We do not believe we could offer all the things we do and get the outcomes we're getting for students on public funding alone. That's why we've taken a deliberate decision to fundraise so that we can offer all of these things as part of our program. And because we believe they're just important for kids. We want our kids to have access to the arts and have Spanish and be able to go on overnight experiences. Another fact that I think folks are not often aware of is that we actually get less money, even as a public school in San Francisco that is, open and accessible to all. We get less money than SFUSD schools because we do not get some of the parcel taxes and some of the different bond funding that the district schools get. We are exempt from some of them, which is a whole other issue and policy to take up. I'm happy to talk offline about my thoughts and feelings of that, but it is just a fact that we get $3,000 less per student than the elementary school 2 blocks from us. So Ryan and I take on the vast majority of the fundraising efforts. Our jobs as executive directors are to raise $1.4 million to cover these costs, to cover that gap in what we get in public funding and what it costs to run our model. On top of the 1.4 million that Ryan and I are responsible, families raise, or the goal this year for families to fundraise is 345,000. Something else that's important about fundraising is that when Ryan and I are talking to external donors or foundations or corporations, one of the data points that we are able to hold up is how high the participation rate is for our families. Last year, we had 86% participation in Magic Fund across the entire school. That is really, really high and incredible. And when I go out to funders and say that, it really, one, it's a testament to the climate and culture of our school that families really believe in our model. It's a testament that regardless of where you are in the income spectrum, you want to be able to give back, even if that's a small amount, but that you have skin in the game and you want to support the activities that are happening in school for your child and for all students. So as much as the target itself of 345,000 really, really matters and is critical, participation is as important. I think this next slide, Sonia, is well, actually, I'm going to come back. We'll come back to the other one. This answers Sonia. Sonia, the goal last year was 300,000 and we raised 288,000. So we came incredibly close. Okay, I misspoke. I said it was 86% participation. It was 85. I was thinking of 5th grade last year. That was 86% participation. What I would say, I think the follow-up to your question, Sonia, then what happens if we don't hit the target? Maybe.
Right. Yeah. I was just wondering, like, if we only, I knew we got around 80% last year. Is that enough to cover everything?
So here's what I would say. It came short of the mark. And so essentially what that means is that then Ryan and I need to assume the delta that we're forecasting, right? And so in that case, it was $12,000. It wasn't the most significant, but whatever we do not raise in Magic Fund, it needs to be raised from somewhere, right? It doesn't, we have a very small contingency built into our budget to account for several things, but the biggest kind of shifts to our budget are if we do not hit our attendance target, which is 95% attendance this year, if we do not hit our enrollment target, or we do not hit our fundraising target. So if all 3 of those things are true, we actually have a reserve built in. We get to put more of that reserve back into our broader reserve, and we're doing great. In no year in the last 5 years have we hit all 3 of those targets. And in fact, last year we came significantly under for all 3. We came significantly under for attendance, we came under our enrollment target, and we did not hit our fundraising target overall. That impact has been carried forward into this year's budget, combined with the fact that the state's funding went up less than 1%. So what I would say is this year, big picture, our budget is incredibly, incredibly tight. We don't have the same cushion that we've had in years past when we don't hit our fundraising target. I'm just being very honest, and I think it's important that we're transparent with families. We shared that on the budget and finance coffee chat, I think last week or the week before, with families as well, that our budget is just very, very tight this year. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you for explaining it.
Yeah, of course. I wish I had better news that we have, a $10 million reserve that we can pull from, and we don't right now. We're working to build that back up. I'm going to go back a slide. This just breaks down. It's just another visual of what you've already seen. Our overall fundraising target for this year is just over 1.7 million. Again, the majority of that in the orange is raised by Ryan and I from individuals external to New School, foundations, and 345 comes from families. The majority will come from Magic Fund, assuming we hit our target or exceed it, yay, of 300,000. 30,000 we are raising for middle school sports. And then 15,000 was raised from Stock the School. And that's a separate fundraiser. And that specifically goes to kind of the consumable resources that go into that teachers need in classrooms, books, pens, materials. I'm going to keep going and just assume people take themselves off mute and jump in if they have questions. Cool. All right, there's how we did last year. So I think the next slide, drum roll, dun, 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 here's fifth grade's goal for this year. And so we're breaking up Magic Fund to set a specific target by grade. We're doing it for a couple reasons this year. One is one piece of feedback we've gotten is 300,000 is a lot. That feels overwhelming. It feels like my gift of $100 is not significant, or how does that contribution really help? And so we think that by breaking up the targets and giving each grade level a smaller target, that when all added together gets us to our overall school target of 300,000, it makes it feel more tenable for grade levels to rally behind. Second, it helps us get more specific of exactly for that 51,000. Again, what are we fundraising for? The outdoor education experience is 17,000, as you can see there. Again, that ensures that covers that every single student can go and that we have the buses to and from camp. And then 34,000 is for arts and music programming. The other feedback we've heard is, can you just be explicit and say what the recommended ask is? Whether or not I am able to do that as a family, I'd like to know, how do we actually get to that target? And so as you can see here, and there's probably quite a bit of sticker shock with the high income families. But again, if you go back to that other slide, that our delta per student is $8,000. We are putting that as the high end for higher income families to be aware of. And if you're in a position where you can donate $8,000 to cover that gap entirely for your student or go beyond it and cover for more students, amazing. Recognize many families in our community are not in a position to do that. And then we have tiered levels of support for middle income families and then for lower income families as well. That said, any and all donations, no matter the size, are incredibly helpful, help us get to our bigger target, and from a participation standpoint are also really important. Another thing to know, just looking at our data from past years, I can appreciate there might be assumptions, or I've heard assumptions made at times that it's our lower income families that cannot participate, or it's a hardship, or we wouldn't want to ask them for money. Our data does not show that. Our data shows that we have the highest participation rate in Magic Fund from our lower income families. And so I think that's just important to be clear about and know. And that is why we do put out an amount, and we believe every family is in a position to do something. Again, that something is different, but believe all families can have some level of kind of skin in the game and help us towards this bigger goal. So here's some strategies. So how do we get to this goal? This is big for fifth grade. You guys have the second largest target, you in eighth grade. Yay, fifth grade. But I think it's infinitely possible. I am an optimist and I am here to help, and our room parents are fired up too. So here are some of our strategies. First and foremost, 100% participation. That's super ambitious. We've never seen a grade level get to 100% participation, but I put the challenge out to fifth grade. See if you can do it. You can set a record. But that is probably our quickest and most, arguably like efficient way to get as close to our top line goal as possible, is to have every family donate. Again, regardless of what the amount is. Ways to make it more tenable for families. One, pay in installments. So, hey, I want to be able to give $150 over the course of the year. I can't do it all right now. I can give $50 in December. I can give $50 in February as it gets close to camp, and I can give $50 in the spring. So we want to make it easier for families to make a pledge now, so we know that that money is coming and that commitment has been made. But I'm a family, I can't do it all at once. Another thing that we see being incredibly effective, and this applies for, to not everybody's employer, but many companies' employers do matching gifts. So we want to make sure where every person is asking their employer, do you match? I'm making this donation to a nonprofit. Many companies do that, and we see quite a bit of money coming through matching gifts as well. I'd say even if your employer doesn't match, I'm pushing my husband's company because they're a startup and they don't have that yet. I'm like, well, just go to your co-founders and say like, well, then just make a contribution to this worthy cause. So I am here to help with any language or pitch points people need to go to their employers who might want to help send all of our kids to an amazing outdoor education experience. Second idea, or category rather, of strategies is just smaller fundraisers along the way. February will probably be here in no time because it's already almost the holidays and time flies. But we do have a runway in which we can do some fundraisers leading up to camp, and certainly we can continue to do them even after camp as well. Whether that's bake sales, a car wash day, different ideas to bring funds into the school, and also to get kids involved. So kids take some level, of responsibility and hopefully kind of excitement and pride in being able to fundraise for something that they're excited about. I've shared the story when I was in 5th grade, my 2 teachers were Hawaiian, and we learned a lot about Polynesian culture and fundraised all year in 5th grade to be able to fly to Hawaii and visit some of the historic landmarks. And as a 5th grader, I loved fundraising. We sold chocolate bars, we did this, we had a car wash, we did all sorts of things. And I personally took a lot of pride in being able to play a role and feel a sense of ownership when I then got to go to Hawaii, that I enabled part of that to be possible. And then the third strategy is engaging friends and family. So the money for our Magic Fund fundraiser for 5th grade doesn't have to just come from parents. They can come from an aunt. They can come from your friend. They can come from a coworker. If there's anyone you think that would be sympathetic to supporting a really great public school, sympathetic to wanting to see all of our kids go to this awesome outdoor education, I'm happy to supply you with whatever talking points you need. But asking others can give will certainly help us get to our fundraising target as well. And if it's a family member that can give because you're not in a place to give, i.e. the grandparent gives or the aunt gives, we will still credit that student in your grade with the participation.
Emily, can I ask a question? It's
Yeah.
Tammy.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi. Sorry to have my video on. For asking for friends and family, when they donate, I don't recall, is there a place for them to associate their donation with the child?
When they give through, so oftentimes we've got a couple grandparents that write us checks. They'll sometimes just give us a note. I'm doing this because of my granddaughter. I love X. She's the best, or, and so that's our giveaway. If it comes through PayPal and a credit card, it gives us, if they're giving anonymously on PayPal, Tammy, we cannot track that gift. That's actually important and relevant for all families. The default on PayPal, which drives me bonkers, is to give anonymously. And then we have no idea who gave. We can't issue a thank you note, and we can't credit that family with participation. So we really appreciate it if you don't give anonymously on PayPal, and know that the data is only seen by Ryan and I and our development consultant. I don't share with room parents which families gave which amounts. Nobody sees that. So it's very secure and relatively confidential, right? It's just our fundraising team that sees it. And so I think sometimes people give anonymously because I don't want my name on a website or I don't want people to know. But please know that if the only people that see the data coming through for donations are myself, Ryan, and our fundraising consultant.
Okay.
Yeah. And so with PayPal, for example, if you're not giving anonymously, it does require you to give an email address. And so when we're not sure, Tammy, I just follow up and send an email. I say, thank you so much for your $200 donation. Please tell me how you're connected to New School. I want to make sure we're, thanking the appropriate people in addition to thanking you.
I think one thing that might be helpful, and I don't know how many families have extended family who engage, but for the families to find out if somebody donated, who Ripley likes to write a letter to her family members, and then sometimes we don't find out unless they flat out tell us. we don't know, because she would like to send a thank you also, and I think that's helpful for them to feel appreciated and to continue doing it in years.
Absolutely. I think I'm relatively good at it. And again, the places where I can't track are when they come in anonymously. But otherwise,
Sorry, I meant like from us. Does that make
Oh,
sense? Like if we found out, like our family found out that like, let's say Ripley's grandpa donated, he probably wouldn't actually tell us, but it would be nice for us to send him a note or like some sort of acknowledgement.
yes, absolutely. I try to follow up and do that, and I'm going to be
Okay.
very diligent this year.
Okay.
But I think that's really important, especially as we're doing more asks of family and friends. Like you're going to want to know too, right? It's like when a donor refers another donor, the donor that referred should also know that your friend now made a gift to the school. You get some credit for that, right? And you should also take pride in that. And you also probably want to thank that person who's your friend.
Yeah, I think it's nice to get a personal note too sometimes. Like I found out my best friend donated last year and I didn't even know until months later.
Oh no. Oh no. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's not, I don't feel like it's your responsibility. I just would love like some way for us to like find out.
Yeah. I do for what it's worth, and some people don't always respond to me. I don't know. If the donor is unfamiliar to me, they will absolutely get a thank you so much, and can you tell me how you're connected to the school? But I will make sure I'm very on top of that this year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. So the goal, sorry, I'm not looking at the slide. The goal is, I think, 51,000 for 5th grades. Do you have, so I have a kindergartner. How much is like the donation suggestion for, other grades?
Yeah. So actually, that's a great question, Ida. The 5th, let me go back to, let's see, maybe this slide is the best one that has the giving levels. I didn't change these giving levels for each grade. So this would be the giving level per student.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And maybe that's something I could do given 5th grade's target is higher. But given there's also a range in here, I just left it knowing that in 5th grade, knowing the target is higher, knowing you're quote unquote kind of getting more than 4th grade. And so far it's like 4th grade's not going on a 3-night overnight trip. You'd be inclined to give it the higher end than what you'd normally give this year. And then Kinder's target is, I believe, 30,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I apologize that I was running a meeting till 5:30 and then so sorry
You're
that I'm
good.
so late. I had a conversation a while back. I think, right, and like not so surprising. This is so, by the way, this is great. I love the clarity and like and the incentives and like kind of like what's at stake. Of like when you sent the honest email of like we don't have enough money, so things are getting cut. And I was curious with some other parents of like committing together, like that if
Mm.
and just to say like very like high level looking at the numbers playing with easy math, that if there were 10 families, right, who committed to 5K each, right, then we've met our goal. And then if that's I'm really spitballing here. Like if that's the case, then like what does icing on the cake look like? Like is there does it support other grades, other things that come back to our grade? As I the best motivator for me to hit a certain dollar amount will be like Tammy says like, hey, we're gonna give this. Or like we're gonna give this and like my grandparents are giving this and like collectively like my family unit's committing to this amount. Will you do that with me? Like, oh, okay, Tammy, we'll do
Yeah.
that with you. And it's like what that like how if others were open to it, what that would look like. I don't know. It's the start of a thought.
What do others think? I can respond to some of it, Lior. And again, I'm genuinely curious kind of how that lands for other parents. I think why I'm in fundraising, not in fundraising, I'm in education, but why I actually love the aspect of fundraising for my job. There's a couple of reasons, but one, I deeply believe in the cause I'm fundraising for. I don't believe our school is perfect. I don't believe we're without our challenges and whatnot, but I deeply believe in what we are doing. I send my own kids here. And so I think I find it far easier to go out and ask people for money because I believe in this. And connected, what I'd say is when other people rally around that and come alongside me, I get a lot of energy from that and find it fun. So my hope with this, with Magic Fund, is, and maybe fun is not the immediate word that comes to mind for parents, but there is an element of like, this is exciting. We get to come together and we get to do something that's really critical for our school. And doing it in community feels a lot better than doing it by myself. So that's just one reaction I'm having to what you're sharing is I love the idea of like thinking about it like as a community and how we can help. A thought I'm having in response to what does that get us if we hit our target? Well, it gets us all the things that we just said. Great. We can go to camp. I don't have to worry when we send off the deposit. We're not going to raise the rest. And I don't know what we're going to do if we can't raise the rest once we put down a non-refundable deposit. I don't want to not get our $4,500 back. So hitting our target means we're good. Our kids are going to camp and we are going to be in a financially okay position to be able to pay all of our staff for the rest of the year. And Ryan and I don't have to worry that our fundraising target, we're going to find out in June, has been increased further. We already have a very aggressive target. And so again, if we come short on Magic Fund, Ryan and I are going to have to pivot quickly and figure out how to contingency plan if we come in under. Long term, if we had a plan that said families are making a multi-year commitment, I'm going to make this commitment. I'm going to make it for 3 years. I can give X amount this year, next year, and the following year. If we can get enough families to do that, we know for certainty we will have art next year. We know for certainty we'll have Mr. Antoine. I hate being in the position every year of not knowing if we're like, and again, this is relatively new in the last 2 years. We lost a lot of one-time COVID funding. State budget is at its lowest. Like we're in a very pinched position. The blue sky would be, we have multi-year commitments. We have visibility. And each year with Magic Fund, we're not starting at 0, getting to 300. We're saying we actually have 100K in commitments already made towards next year's Magic Fund. And I didn't put that on this slide, but I'd be happy to just in like another strategy. Again, it's not a strategy necessarily for this year, but for our longer term sustainability for families that can make a multi-year commitment. Would absolutely love that. And we do that with many of our donors. As you can appreciate, for Ryan and I starting each year at 0, getting to $1.4 million would not work. So also to give parents a little peace of mind, we weren't starting this year at 0. We had a lot of commitments coming into this year, but that is the only way we can operate sustainably is to have multi-year commitments and have greater visibility into how we're going to get to that big number. So we do that with all of our donors outside of families.
How does a parent or a network of parents make a multi-year commitment?
A pledge. I will. So one of the things I was thinking about after this call is sending out. Do folks want like hard copy pledge forms in backpacks, or would families prefer like a Google pledge form, like a survey to make your pledge? I can do both too.
I prefer the internet.
Great. It's really simple. Anything like it in writing is all we need from a finance perspective to be able to quote unquote book something, have it on the books for our finance team. So it's very simple, but it can't be verbal. That's the only thing. It does have to be in writing. I know we've got a few more minutes. Are there other questions? And then I'll move to this last slide. Margaret, I saw you take yourself off mute.
Are you going to have one of these calls for every grade?
Yeah.
Okay.
You bet. That's what room parents asked for. I'm here for it.
For those of us with multiple kids, can you also just
You don't have to come to all. They're all, if you have multiple kids, come to one. You've gotten the headlines.
Right, but Taita's question of what the goals are per year, if those are really different, especially, that would be great to know. And then,
Absolutely.
and then as a gift, how you'll allocate it as,
If you have multiple kids on this pledge form, you're going to indicate which students this is going towards. We also have it on the back. I have a spreadsheet. I know exactly which kids you're connected to. And so I always just split the gifts in the past. And so, but we've never asked parents to do that. So if you'd like to delineate, I'm making a gift of $300. Let's go higher. I'm going to go higher. I'm making a gift of $4,000. I want 3,000 to go to 5th grade. I want 1,000 to go to this grade. You can indicate that on the pledge form. I also should have mentioned G5 is kicking off first, just so you know. So if you have multiple kids, you can kind of breathe for a minute on those. We don't typically kick off Magic Fund until after on Giving Tuesday, so after fall break. We're explicitly kicking off 5th grade early because it's a high fundraising target. It's higher than the other grades, and because camp is around the corner. February will be here pretty soon. And so to have visibility and line of sight that we can afford to do it, we've got to hit some milestones. So our first milestone is the deposit. I have every confidence we'll hit that, but that will be by the end of November, which is also around the corner, that we've raised 5,000 to cover that non-refundable deposit. Set a milestone for the end of December of having 35,000 towards the goal raised. And then by the end of January, the full amount.
Is there going to be a date where we get commitments from all the family for the outdoor experience?
Do you mean, Tammy, like who's actually going, which students?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gabby,
Oh,
I
I'm
wonder if
just
any of the
curious
room
if you
parents
don't
on here
know.
know that there's a date by which we've put in. So we've signed the contract with them. We've not put down the deposit yet. And then there's some wiggle room you have within the contract. I just don't know what the exact date is by which you can tweak the number of students. Right now, our contract says every student is going.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Rather err on the high end. And then if any student wanted to opt out because they're not ready, every year there's sometimes one kid that doesn't feel ready to go or want to go. All right. In terms of next steps, we've got a Spanish one starting in a minute. First of all, thank you all for joining. Thank you for the great questions, the engagement, and the like creative ideas of how we're going to do this. Very concretely, I am going to follow up tomorrow with this deck so families have access to it. And then the pledge form, which will be the Google online version first with directions of I'm ready to make a gift now or part of my gift now. How do I donate? So you'll have those links. We have a Venmo link. We have giving by credit card. You can give by stock, cash, check, many options. I try to make it as easy as possible to give us money. But all of that information you will have as soon as tomorrow. If you're dying to make a gift tonight, just email me tonight and I'll help you out.
Emily,
Appreciate. Yeah.
sorry, I just had a question because at our last public school we did a oh my God, I'm so brain dead. I'm blanking on the like a auction, you know, where people would donate items. And I remember when we started at this school, I think you said for equity reasons we don't do that, but it was a really good way to bond with staff because everybody would come to it and we'd try to get like the space donated. Is that something that's off the table still?
I think if there's a way, I wouldn't say it's off the table, Sonia. I think we'd have to think a little bit about maybe like a silent auction or a way that's just not like very visible or showy of like who's raising their hand for the most money. So I think there are ways to do it that like can preserve anonymity. People can donate items. We can get money for them. So I'm all for looking into that. Realistically, I think that would probably be like a spring. Hey, we haven't closed this gap yet. Here's some other creative ways to close our gap.
Yeah, that
But
was a big
I like the
for me.
idea. I just want to be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, totally.
But also 5th grade wanted to do smaller scale things of that same thing. 5th grade all comes together and we have a face painter, or somebody in the community can face paint, or somebody does this, and everyone, you pay $20 to come to this, you know, Friday night at school where we have these different things and all that money goes to Magic Fund. Like I'm all for that too. So I want to think about ways we can gather as a community and do it in community. Because again, coming back to what I said before, that's fun and we're all part of it. But keeping the like equity perspective front and center. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Emily. Really appreciate the communications and the
Thank
clarity.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Thanks, Emily.